The pilot who returned with the Tide Act I. October 1945. USS Enterprise aircraft carrier, somewhere in the Western Pacific. The war is over. Japan surrendered 6 weeks ago. The fighting stopped. But the dying hasn't. Not completely. Not yet. Lieutenant Jack Collins stands on the flight deck at 0530 hours, watching the sun rise over endless gray water. He's 24 years old, from Des Moines, Iowa. He's been flying combat missions for 18 months, survived Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the kamikaze attacks that turned the Pacific into a burning graveyard of ships and men. He's flown 73 missions, watched friends die, killed men he never saw, done everything the Navy asked and more. He should be going home. They all should be going home. But the war left debris, human debris, scattered across 10,000 miles of ocean. Prisoners of war in Japanese camps, waiting for liberation. Downed airmen on remote islands, alive or dead, waiting for recovery. The Navy doesn't leave men behind. Even now, even after victory, the ships keep searching, the aircraft keep flying, the mission continues. Bring them home. All of them. Every single one. Collins is scheduled for patrol flight this morning, search and rescue sweep over the northern Philippines, looking for POW camps, for survivors, for anyone who needs extraction. It's routine work, boring compared to combat, but necessary. He doesn't mind. Boring is good. Boring means nobody's shooting at you. Boring means you come back alive. He runs through pre-flight checks on his aircraft, a Grumman F-6F Hellcat, single-seat fighter designed for carrier operations. It's a good plane, reliable, forgiving, capable. Collins trusts it completely. He's flown this specific aircraft for 8 months, knows every quirk, every sound, every vibration. It's kept him alive through situations that should have killed him. He respects it the way sailors respect the sea, acknowledging its power while never quite trusting it completely. The briefing was standard. Fly northwest, patrol designated sectors, look for signals, return before fuel runs low. Weather forecast is acceptable, scattered clouds, moderate winds, visibility good. No enemy activity expected because there is no enemy anymore. Japan surrendered. The war ended. This is just cleanup, recovery operations, bringing home the living and identifying the dead. 0600 hours. Collins climbs into the cockpit, straps himself in, goes through startup sequence. The engine catches, roars to life, the propeller spinning into invisible blur. He checks instruments, radios, everything functioning normally. Tower clears him for launch. The catapult officer signals. Collins pushes throttle forward, feels the sudden violent acceleration as the catapult hurls him off the deck, from 0 to 90 miles per hour in 2 seconds, the Hellcat clawing for altitude, climbing away from the carrier into empty sky. He loves this moment, the transition from deck to air, from trapped to free. Flying is the only thing that makes sense to him anymore. The war changed him in ways he doesn't fully understand, hollowed him out, left him functional but disconnected. He can fly, can follow orders, can execute missions with professional competence. But the person he was before the war, the kid from Iowa who wanted to see the world and have adventures, that person died somewhere over the Pacific, lost among the burning ships and falling aircraft in endless gray water. He flies northwest, following assigned course, scanning instruments, maintaining altitude at 8,000 feet. The ocean stretches beneath him, absolutely empty, no ships, no land, no reference points. Just water, endless water, the same water that's been there for millions of years, indifferent to human wars and human deaths, absorbing everything, revealing nothing. 2 hours into the patrol, his radio crackles with transmission from Enterprise. New tasking, altered mission. Reports of possible survivors on small island approximately 100 miles north of his current position. Fly there, investigate, report findings. Collins acknowledges, alters course, climbs to 10,000 feet for better visibility. The island appears 40 minutes later, tiny green dot in endless blue, maybe half a mile across, jungle-covered, surrounded by coral reef. Collins circles, scanning for signs of habitation, for signals, for anything indicating human presence. He sees nothing. No smoke, no cleared areas, no markings. Just uninhabited jungle and empty beach. Probably false report, probably nothing. But procedures require visual confirmation. He descends to 500 feet, makes low pass over the island, looking carefully. Still nothing. He's about to radio negative contact when he sees it, brief flash of reflected light from the jungle canopy, sunlight glinting off something metal or glass. Could be debris, could be natural, could be survivors. He makes another pass, slower, lower, searching for the source of reflection. There, movement in the trees near the beach, something white waving, a shirt or cloth, definite signal. Someone's down there. Someone alive, signaling for rescue. Collins acknowledges internally, marks the position, prepares to radio Enterprise. But his radio is dead. He tries transmitting, receives nothing but static. Equipment failure, probably the result of salt corrosion or mechanical breakdown, common problems on carrier aircraft exposed constantly to harsh maritime environment. He can receive intermittently but can't transmit. He's lost communication with the ship. Standard procedure is return immediately, report equipment failure, allow another aircraft to investigate the survivors. But Collins hesitates. The island is remote, the survivor has probably been here for weeks or months, waiting desperately for rescue. If Collins returns without confirming details, without providing precise coordinates, the survivor might miss rescue, might wait another day or week while replacement aircraft is dispatched. That's unacceptable. The man down there has suffered enough. He deserves immediate attention. Collins makes a decision. He'll stay on station, circle the island, maintain visual contact until his fuel runs low, then return to Enterprise with precise information, detailed description, everything rescue forces need for immediate extraction. It's bending procedures slightly, but it's the right thing to do. The war taught him that sometimes doing the right thing means ignoring regulations, trusting judgment over rules. He circles the island for 30 minutes, noting details, observing the survivor's position, evaluating landing zones for rescue aircraft. The survivor keeps signaling, waving cloth, clearly aware of Collins' presence, probably overjoyed that someone finally found him. Collins wishes he could communicate, could tell the man help is coming, just hold on a little longer. But without radio he's limited to visual acknowledgement, waggling wings to indicate he sees, he understands, he'll bring help. Then his engine coughs. Just once, brief interruption in the steady roar, barely noticeable. Collins' attention snaps to instruments immediately. Oil pressure normal, fuel flow normal, temperature normal. Everything reads correctly. Probably nothing, probably just brief fuel surge or minor mechanical hiccup. Aircraft do that sometimes, especially older aircraft flown hard through combat conditions. But 30 seconds later the engine coughs again. Longer this time, noticeable power loss, the propeller RPM dropping briefly before recovering. Collins scans instruments more carefully. Fuel gauge shows half tank remaining, plenty for return flight to Enterprise. But something's wrong. He can feel it, pilot's instinct developed through hundreds of hours in the cockpit, the subtle awareness that his aircraft is sick, that something is failing even if instruments don't yet show it. He makes immediate decision. Return to carrier now, before whatever's wrong becomes critical. He's marked the survivor's position, has the coordinates, can report everything Enterprise needs for rescue operation. His responsibility is get himself and his aircraft home safely. He turns east, points the Hellcat toward the carrier's last known position, maintains altitude, monitors engine carefully. The engine runs rough now, definitely sick, power fluctuating randomly. Collins adjusts mixture, tries to stabilize performance, but nothing helps. The Hellcat is dying, slowly, something internal failing, mechanical breakdown that won't respond to pilot input. He calculates distance to Enterprise, fuel remaining, rate of deterioration. The mathematics are bad. If the engine fails completely in the next 20 minutes, he won't make it back. He'll have to ditch. Ditching is dangerous. Landing aircraft on water is controlled crash, violent impact, high probability of injury or death. But pilots train for it, practice procedures, know the techniques. Nose up, tail low, minimum speed, land parallel to wave direction. Theory is simple. Execution is terrifying. Most pilots who ditch successfully still die from drowning, exposure, or shark attack before rescue arrives. The survival rate is maybe 30%. Collins flies for another 10 minutes, coaxing maximum performance from failing engine, refusing to accept the mathematical inevitability. But the engine deteriorates steadily, losing power, running rougher, temperature climbing into dangerous range. Something internal has broken, probably bearing failure or cracked cylinder, mechanical damage that can't be fixed in flight. The engine will quit completely soon. It's not a question of if, only when. 15 minutes later, the engine seizes. No warning, no gradual decline. Just sudden complete failure, the propeller stopping, the cockpit going silent except for wind noise. Collins is flying a glider now, 7,000 pounds of metal and fuel falling toward the ocean at controlled rate determined by physics and aerodynamics, not by engine power. He is maybe 3 minutes before impact. He runs through ditching procedures automatically, muscle memory from training taking over. Jettison external tanks and ordnance, reduce weight. Tighten harness straps, prepare for impact. Unlatch canopy, ensure it's ready to jettison quickly. Inflate life vest, grab emergency supplies. Every action precise, mechanical, no time for fear or hesitation. The ocean rises to meet him. He levels off at 200 feet, evaluates the waves, picks his landing approach. The seas are moderate, 4 to 6 foot swells, manageable if he times it correctly. He needs to land parallel to the wave direction, touch down on the backside of a wave, not on the crest. Landing on a crest means the aircraft breaks apart on impact. Landing in the trough means better chance of controlled descent. 100 feet, 50 feet, 20 feet. He pulls back on the stick, flares the Hellcat, bleeds off speed, tries to kiss the water gently. The aircraft hits hard anyway, physics trumping technique, the impact violent and immediate. The Hellcat's tail catches first, good, that's correct. But then the nose digs in, the aircraft cartwheeling forward, metal screeching, water exploding through the cockpit, everything happening too fast to process. Collins is thrown forward against his harness, his head slamming into the gun sight, his vision exploding into stars and darkness. He tastes blood, feels cold water flooding around him, hears metal tearing. The Hellcat is breaking apart, sinking, taking him with it. He fumbles with harness release, fingers numb, hands shaking, unable to work the mechanism. Panic rises, primal terror of drowning, of being trapped underwater in sinking aircraft. The harness releases finally. He pushes away from the seat, kicks upward, swims desperately toward surface. His flight suit is waterlogged, his boots heavy, his equipment dragging him down. He breaks surface, gasps for air, sees the Hellcat's tail section 30 feet away, already half submerged, sinking rapidly. He swims away from it, knowing the suction of sinking aircraft can drag swimmers under, pull them down to depths they can't escape. The Hellcat disappears beneath the surface, gone in less than 30 seconds, metal and fuel and equipment sinking toward the bottom thousands of feet below. Collins floats alone in the Pacific, his Mae West life vest keeping him afloat, his head bleeding from impact with the gun sight, his body bruised and battered from the crash. But he's alive. He survived the ditching. That's something. That's more than many pilots achieve. He takes inventory. He has his life vest inflated and functioning. He has his emergency supplies, waterproof pouch attached to his vest containing flares, fishing line, water purification tablets, first aid kit, signaling mirror. He doesn't have the life raft. It was attached to the aircraft, should have automatically deployed during ditching, but something failed, the mechanism didn't work, the raft went down with the Hellcat. He's floating in open ocean without raft, without shelter, completely exposed. The situation is bad but not immediately fatal. His Mae West will keep him afloat indefinitely, assuming it doesn't puncture or deflate. The water temperature is maybe 80 degrees, warm enough that hypothermia isn't immediate concern. He's not bleeding severely, no obvious major injuries. He has emergency supplies, limited but better than nothing. And Enterprise knows his approximate position, knows he was on patrol in this area. They'll search for him when he fails to return. Rescue might come in hours, certainly within a day. He just has to survive until they find him. Just float, conserve energy, stay calm, wait for rescue. Simple in theory. Terrifying in practice. The first hour passes slowly. Collins floats, watching the horizon, scanning for ships or aircraft, seeing nothing but endless water. The sun climbs higher, the temperature increases, the water reflects light painfully. He closes his eyes against the glare, tries to rest, conserve energy. But resting is difficult. Every wave feels threatening, every sound suggests danger. Sharks, he thinks. The Pacific is full of sharks. They're attracted to blood and splashing. He's bleeding from his head wound. He tries not to move, not to splash, not to attract attention. The second hour brings new problems. Thirst. His mouth is dry despite being surrounded by water. Salt water is undrinkable, will cause dehydration and kidney failure if consumed. He has no fresh water. The emergency supplies include purification tablets but nothing to purify. He's surrounded by liquid he can't drink, dying of thirst in the middle of the ocean. The irony is cruel. The third hour brings hallucinations. Or maybe not hallucinations, maybe real observations distorted by stress and dehydration. He sees shapes in the water, dark shadows moving beneath him, circling, investigating. Sharks probably, attracted by the crash, by the blood, by the unusual presence of human in their territory. They don't attack, just circle, curious, evaluating. He tries not to panic, not to thrash, knowing panic attracts predators. The fourth hour brings acceptance. Rescue isn't coming. Not today. Maybe not ever. Enterprise doesn't know exactly where he ditched. His radio was dead, he couldn't transmit position. They know his general patrol area, hundreds of square miles of ocean. Finding one man floating without raft in that area is nearly impossible. The mathematics are against him. He's going to die out here, alone, floating in the Pacific, just another casualty added to the war's endless list. But he doesn't die. The sun sets, the 4th hour becomes the 5th, then the 6th. Night falls, absolute darkness, no moon, no stars, just blackness and the sound of waves. Collins floats in darkness, exhausted, delirious, barely conscious. He dreams about Iowa, about home, about his mother's kitchen and the smell of fresh bread. He dreams about flying, about clean kills and successful missions and coming home to cheering crowds. He dreams about the survivor on the island, the man waving the white cloth, still waiting for rescue that might never come. Dawn arrives eventually. The 6th hour becomes the 12th, then the 18th. Collins is still alive, somehow, his body refusing to quit despite dehydration and exhaustion and exposure. The sun rises again, another day beginning, another cycle of heat and thirst and endless waiting. He's been in the water for 24 hours now. His skin is burned, his lips cracked, his throat raw. He can't remember why he's here, can't recall the ditching, can't think clearly through the fog of dehydration and sun exposure. He sees aircraft twice on the 2nd day, distant specks crossing the sky miles away, search planes looking for him probably, but too far to see one man's head bobbing in endless ocean. He tries to signal with his mirror, reflecting sunlight toward them, but his hands shake too badly, he can't hold the mirror steady, the reflection dances uselessly. The aircraft pass without seeing him, disappear over the horizon, leave him alone again. The second night is worse than the first. He's weaker now, barely conscious, his Mae West the only thing preventing him from sinking beneath the surface. He hallucinates constantly, seeing ships that aren't there, hearing voices calling his name, feeling hands pulling him from the water. But it's all illusion, dehydration-induced madness, his brain shutting down from lack of water and exposure. He should be dead. By all logic, by all probability he should have died already. Pilots don't survive 3 days in the Pacific without raft, without water, without rescue. The statistics say he's already dead. But somehow, impossibly, he keeps floating, keeps breathing, keeps existing minute by minute. The 3rd day brings resignation. He's too weak to care anymore, too exhausted to fear death. He floats in semi-conscious haze, aware of sun and water and pain but disconnected from them, observing his own dying from some distant internal place. This is how it ends, he thinks dimly. Not shot down in combat, not killed by enemy action, but dying slowly from exposure and thirst, floating alone in endless ocean, forgotten by everyone who knew him. But the ocean isn't done with him yet. The 3rd afternoon brings change, subtle at first, then increasingly noticeable. The current shifts, the wave pattern changes, the water temperature drops slightly. Collins doesn't understand what's happening, doesn't have capacity to analyze. He just floats, passive, letting the ocean carry him wherever it wants. The current strengthens through the afternoon, pushing him steadily, directionally, with purpose. He's caught in something, some oceanic phenomenon, tide or current or convergence zone, water moving with intention. He rides it helplessly, a piece of human debris carried by forces beyond comprehension or control. Night falls for the 3rd time. Collins is barely conscious now, hovering on the edge of death, his body shutting down system by system. But the current continues, pushing him through darkness, carrying him toward destination he can't see and doesn't understand. Dawn of the 4th day. Collins opens his eyes, barely, squinting against painful light. He sees something impossible, something his dying brain can't process. Green. Color that isn't blue or gray. Trees. Jungle. Land. He's within 100 yards of shore, floating in shallow water over coral reef, the current having carried him through the night to some island, some piece of land, salvation delivered by ocean that should have killed him. He tries to swim, his arms moving weakly, his legs barely responding. The current helps, pushing him toward shore, depositing him in the shallows. His feet touch bottom. Sand and coral. Solid earth beneath him. He stumbles forward, crawling more than walking, dragging himself through knee-deep water toward the beach. He collapses on sand, face down, unable to move further, consciousness fading. He's alive. Against impossible odds, against every probability, against the Pacific's infinite capacity for killing, he's alive. The ocean carried him for 3 days and 4 nights, 72 hours floating without food or water or shelter, and delivered him to land. The tide brought him back. The sea returned him. He lies on the beach, barely breathing, more dead than alive. But alive nonetheless. Returned by the ocean that should have claimed him. Given back by the water that keeps so many. This is just the beginning. Survival on the beach is only the first challenge. Finding water, finding food, signaling rescue, these are separate problems requiring solutions he doesn't yet have. But right now, in this moment, he's alive on land instead of dead in water. That's enough. That's everything. Lieutenant Jack Collins lies on unknown beach in the Western Pacific, returned by the tide, breathing sand-filled air, feeling solid earth beneath his dying body, and thinks, I made it. Somehow, impossibly, I made it. The ocean gave him back. Now he has to figure out how to stay alive long enough for someone to find him. The pilot who returned with the tide. Act 2. Day 4. Collins wakes on the beach, sand crusted on his face, salt dried on his skin, the sun already high and merciless. His first thought is water. Not food, not rescue, not shelter. Water. His body is shutting down from dehydration, his organs failing, his blood thickening, his cells dying one by one. He's been 3 days without fresh water, floating in the ocean, surrounded by liquid he couldn't drink. Now he's on land, and land means possibility of water, streams or rainfall or something, anything to drink. He forces himself upright, his muscles screaming protest, his head spinning from the movement. The beach is small, maybe 50 yards of white sand curving between jungle and ocean. The island beyond the beach is larger than it appeared from the air, maybe 2 miles across, jungle-covered hills rising toward a central peak. It's not the same island where he saw the survivor. The current carried him somewhere else, deposited him on different land. He's alone here. No signal cloth, no human presence, just jungle and beach and the sound of waves. He needs to move. Lying on the beach in direct sunlight will kill him as surely as drowning would have. He crawls toward the jungle tree line, seeking shade, seeking relief from the sun that's already burning his exposed skin. The journey takes forever, 20 yards feeling like 20 miles, his body barely functional, operating on reserves that don't exist. He reaches the shade finally, collapses under a palm tree, gasps for breath, tastes blood and salt and desperation. Water. He needs water. Without it, he'll be dead by nightfall. His body can't survive another day of dehydration. He looks around desperately, searching for stream, for puddle, for anything. He sees nothing obvious. Just jungle, dense vegetation, impenetrable green. But jungles have water, they must have water. Rain falls and collects and creates streams and pools. He just has to find it. He forces himself upright again, uses the palm tree for support, stands on shaking legs. The island spins around him, his vision blurring, his balance failing. He's too weak for this, too damaged, too close to death. But stopping means dying. Moving means possibility of survival. The choice is simple even if execution is impossible. He stumbles into the jungle, pushing through undergrowth, following the slope upward, reasoning that water flows downhill, which means sources are uphill. His logic is sound, but his body is failing. Every step requires conscious effort, deliberate command from brain to muscles that barely respond. He falls repeatedly, gets up, falls again, keeps moving through pure stubborn refusal to quit. He hears it before he sees it. Water. The sound of flowing water, musical and beautiful and impossible. He follows the sound, crawling now, unable to walk, dragging himself through vegetation toward salvation. He finds a stream, narrow but flowing, clear water running over rocks, cascading down from higher elevation. It's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. He buries his face in the stream, drinks desperately, gulps water without control or restraint. His stomach rebels immediately, the sudden influx of liquid shocking his dehydrated system, but he keeps drinking, knowing his body needs hydration more than it needs gentle treatment. He drinks until his stomach distends, until he's physically unable to consume more, then he collapses beside the stream, water dripping from his face, his body beginning the slow process of rehydration and recovery. He lies there for hours, drifting in and out of consciousness, his body prioritizing survival over awareness. When he wakes again, the sun is lower, afternoon transitioning toward evening. He feels marginally better, still weak but no longer dying immediately. Water saved him. The stream gave him another chance. But water alone isn't enough. He needs food. He hasn't eaten in 4 days, his body consuming its own muscle for fuel, his strength depleted, his reserves exhausted. He needs calories, protein, energy. He looks around, evaluating resources. The jungle provides, probably, if you know where to look and what to take. Coconuts in the palm trees, maybe fruit in the undergrowth, possibly fish in the ocean. He's not a survival expert, didn't train extensively for jungle survival, but he has basic knowledge, common sense, and desperate motivation. Coconuts are the obvious choice. The palm trees are full of them, green orbs hanging in clusters. But they're 20 feet up and he's too weak to climb. He tries anyway, wrapping arms and legs around the trunk, attempting to shimmy upward. He makes it 3 feet before his strength gives out, sliding back down, landing hard on the sand, his body screaming protest. Climbing is impossible. He needs to find coconuts on the ground, fallen ones, already detached from the tree. He searches the beach systematically, crawling when walking becomes too difficult, checking under every palm tree. He finds 3 coconuts, brown and fibrous, lying in the sand. Opening them is the next challenge. Coconuts are notoriously difficult to open without tools, the hard shell designed by evolution to resist cracking. He has no knife, no sharp implement, nothing but his hands and determination. He finds a sharp rock, uses it to hammer at the coconut's shell, trying to crack it open. The process is slow, exhausting, his weak muscles barely able to deliver meaningful impact. But eventually, after what feels like hours, the shell cracks. He pries it open, finds the white meat inside, tears at it with his teeth, forces it down his throat. It's dry, difficult to swallow, but it's food, calories, fuel for his failing body. The coconut also contains liquid, coconut water, sweet and hydrating. He drinks it gratefully, every drop precious. It's not much, maybe half a cup, but combined with the stream water, it's enough to keep him functional, to give his body resources for basic survival. Night falls. His first night on land. It's completely different from nights floating in the ocean, better in some ways, worse in others. He's on solid ground, sheltered somewhat by jungle, not at risk of drowning or shark attack. But he's also exposed, vulnerable, without fire or protection. The jungle comes alive at night, sounds everywhere, animals moving through vegetation, insects buzzing, birds calling. Some sounds are familiar, others alien, all of them vaguely threatening to man alone and defenseless. He finds a hollow beneath a fallen log, crawls into it, creates minimal shelter from wind and rain. It's not comfortable, barely adequate, but it's better than lying exposed on the beach. He tries to sleep, his body demanding rest, but fear keeps him alert, every sound potentially dangerous, every rustle suggesting predator. He dozes fitfully, waking repeatedly, spending the night in half-conscious vigilance. Day 5 dawns gray and overcast. Collins wakes stiff and aching, his body bruised from sleeping on ground, his wounds from the ditching still raw. But he's alive. Another day survived. Another small victory against odds that continue stacking against him. He returns to the stream, drinks deeply, washes his face and head wound. The wound is infected, he can see that clearly, the skin around it red and swollen, probably contaminated by salt water during his time in the ocean. Without antibiotics, without proper medical care, infection will spread, might kill him slowly even if dehydration and starvation don't. But there's nothing he can do about it except keep the wound clean and hope his immune system fights successfully. He needs to signal for rescue. Enterprise knows he went down somewhere in this region, they're probably searching, probably have multiple aircraft and ships looking for him. But the Pacific is enormous, the search area vast, and he's one man on one small island among thousands. The odds of random discovery are minimal. He needs to help them find him, needs to create signals visible from air or sea. He spends the morning gathering materials for signal fire. Dry wood, palm fronds, anything that will burn and create smoke. He arranges them on the beach in the clearest area, builds a fire structure ready for ignition. But he has no matches, no lighter, no easy way to create flame. He needs friction fire, the primitive method of rubbing wood together to generate heat and ember. He's seen it demonstrated, understands the principle but never attempted it himself. He tries for hours, using a stick and a piece of bark, rubbing frantically, trying to generate enough friction heat to create ember. His hands blister, his arms exhaust, his frustration builds. But nothing happens. No smoke, no ember, no fire. The technique requires specific wood types, specific technique, skill he doesn't possess. He's failing at the most basic survival task, unable to create fire, unable to signal his presence. By midday he abandons the fire attempt, conserves his energy, accepts that rescue signals will have to be visual not smoke-based. He arranges rocks on the beach in large letters, help. The message is visible from air if anyone flies directly overhead, but only if they're looking carefully, only if they pass at right altitude and angle. It's a weak signal, unlikely to be spotted, but it's something. It's an attempt. He returns to the jungle, searches for more food. He finds what might be edible plants, green leaves that don't look obviously poisonous. But eating unknown plants is dangerous, risk of toxins, risk of severe illness. He's heard survival advice about rubbing plants on skin first, testing for reaction before consuming, but he's not sure of details, not confident in his ability to identify safe vegetation. He decides to wait, to rely on coconuts and hope for better options. He tries fishing in the afternoon, wading into shallow water near the reef, attempting to catch fish by hand. It's absurdly difficult, the fish too fast, his reflexes too slow, his technique non-existent. After an hour he's caught nothing, exhausted himself, added frustration to his growing list of failures. He returns to shore defeated, collapsing on the beach, staring at the empty horizon. This is when the reality hits him, the full understanding of his situation. He's marooned on an unknown island, probably uncharted or at least not regularly visited. He has minimal survival skills, limited resources, no way to communicate his location. Enterprise is searching, probably, but they're searching hundreds of square miles of ocean, looking for a needle in an infinite haystack. The probability of rescue decreases with every passing day. After a week, they'll assume he's dead, stop active searching, move on to other priorities. He has maybe 3 more days before the search is called off, before he's officially declared lost at sea, before he becomes just another name on the casualty list. He could die here. Probably will die here. From infection, from starvation, from injury, from any of 100 dangers that populate tropical islands. His body is already failing, already weakened beyond easy recovery. Even with food and water, even with perfect conditions, his survival is uncertain. And conditions aren't perfect. They're barely adequate. He's living day to day, crisis to crisis, with no long-term plan and no realistic hope of rescue. The despair that's been hovering at the edges of his consciousness for days finally crashes through his defenses. He lies on the beach and weeps, first time since the ditching, first time since childhood maybe. He weeps for himself, for his situation, for the unfairness of surviving the ocean only to die slowly on land. He weeps for his mother, who will receive telegrams saying her son is missing, presumed dead, never knowing he survived the crash, never knowing he lasted days beyond what anyone expected. He weeps for the future he won't have, the life he won't live, the person he won't become. But crying accomplishes nothing. Despair doesn't change reality. He's alive right now, in this moment, and that means possibility exists, however slim. He forces himself to stop crying, to control emotion, to focus on immediate practical needs. Water, food, shelter, signals. These are his priorities. These are what keep him alive long enough for rescue to become possible. Day 6. He wakes determined, his emotional breakdown of yesterday transformed into stubborn resolve. He will survive this. He will not die on this island. The ocean didn't kill him, the exposure didn't kill him, the sharks didn't kill him. This island won't kill him either. He'll find food, he'll stay healthy, he'll signal rescue, and he'll get home. Belief without evidence, hope without justification, but necessary for psychological survival. He improves his shelter, building a crude lean-to from palm fronds and branches, creating better protection from rain and sun. He's not a carpenter, has no construction skills, but necessity drives innovation. The shelter is ugly but functional, providing shade during day and minimal protection at night. He returns to the fishing attempt, this time with different technique. He finds a tide pool trapped by the reef, water isolated from ocean, containing small fish trapped by receding tide. He can't catch them by hand, but he can trap them, herding them into shallow corner, scooping them out with hands cupped. After an hour of patient effort, he catches 3 small fish, maybe 6 inches long each. Not much, but protein, calories, food his body desperately needs. Eating raw fish is unpleasant but necessary. He's seen enough survival training to know that raw fish is safe if consumed fresh, that cooking is preferred but not essential. He forces himself to eat, chewing the raw flesh, swallowing despite his stomach's protest. It tastes awful, fishy and slimy and wrong, but it's fuel. His body needs it. Taste doesn't matter. The fish protein helps, giving him energy he's lacked since the ditching. He feels marginally stronger by evening, capable of moving with less difficulty, thinking with slightly more clarity. Food and water, the basics of survival, making difference between dying and living. He spends the evening improving his help message, adding more rocks, making the letters larger, more visible. He also creates an arrow pointing toward his shelter, reasoning that if rescue aircraft spot the message, they'll need to know where exactly he is on the island. The arrow provides direction, guidance, practical information for extraction. Night 6 brings rain, sudden tropical downpour that soaks everything in minutes. Collins huddles in his lean-to trying to stay dry, failing completely. But rain is opportunity, chance to collect fresh water. He positions his Mae West vest to catch rainfall, creating crude reservoir. By the time the rain stops 2 hours later, he's collected maybe a quart of water, clean and fresh, supplement to the stream that's his primary water source. Day 7. 1 week since the ditching. Collins marks the milestone by carving a line into a tree near his shelter, creating calendar, visible record of time passing. 7 days. He survived 7 days beyond what seemed possible. The ocean gave him back after 3 days of floating. The island has sustained him for 4 more days. That's something. That's achievement worth acknowledging. But 7 days also means Enterprise has probably ended active searching. Standard search protocols call for 1 week of intensive effort, after which the operation scales down dramatically. They'll keep passive watch, will investigate reports from other ships or aircraft, but they won't dedicate specific resources to finding one missing pilot. The economic calculation is brutal but necessary. Resources are limited, missions are multiple, one missing man can't justify endless searching. Collins understands this logically, accepts it intellectually, but emotionally it devastates him. He's been abandoned. Not maliciously, not carelessly, but abandoned nonetheless. Nobody is looking for him anymore. Nobody knows he's alive. Nobody is coming to save him. He's on his own, completely, with survival dependent entirely on his own efforts and whatever luck the universe decides to grant. This realization could break him, could destroy his motivation, could lead to passive acceptance of death. But instead it crystallizes his resolve. If nobody's coming to save him, then he'll save himself. He'll survive until opportunity presents itself, until some ship or aircraft passes close enough for him to signal, until random chance aligns in his favor. However long that takes, weeks or months or longer, he'll endure. The alternative is unacceptable. He begins thinking long-term, planning for extended survival. He needs better food sources, more reliable than fishing in tide pools. He needs to explore the island thoroughly, identify all available resources, create mental map of his territory. He needs to establish routine, structure, schedule that keeps him physically active and mentally engaged. He spends day 7 exploring, circling the island's coast, evaluating terrain and resources. The island is roughly circular, maybe 4 miles around, with the central peak rising perhaps 500 feet above sea level. The beach is discontinuous, sections of sand separated by rocky outcroppings and coral reef. The jungle is dense, nearly impenetrable in places, but with animal trails suggesting pathways through the vegetation. He finds evidence of previous human presence on the western side of the island. Rusted metal, corroded beyond identification, maybe from shipwreck decades or centuries ago. Also carved wood, rotting but still showing deliberate shaping, human craftsmanship from unknown era. Someone was here before, survived here, perhaps died here. The discovery is simultaneously encouraging and disturbing. Encouraging because it proves human survival is possible on this island. Disturbing because the artifacts suggest the previous occupant never left, never got rescued, died alone and forgotten. He finds better food sources during his exploration. A tree bearing small yellow fruit, unfamiliar but edible looking. He tests it cautiously, rubbing juice on his skin, waiting for reaction. Nothing happens. He touches it to his lips, waits again. No burning, no numbness. He takes small bite, chews carefully, swallows, waits an hour for symptoms. His stomach tolerates it. By evening he's eaten 3 fruits, small but nutritious, sweet and satisfying. This is victory, successful foraging, expansion of his food options. Night 7. Collins lies in his shelter, listening to jungle sounds, calculating time. 7 days since ditching. 7 days of survival against odds. But also 7 days farther from rescue, 7 days deeper into abandonment. The mathematics of hope are deteriorating. Every day he survives makes eventual rescue less likely, because every day reduces the probability that search forces will happen across him randomly. But probability isn't destiny. Unlikely doesn't mean impossible. He survived 3 days floating in the Pacific when he should have drowned. The current carried him to land when it should have dispersed him into infinite ocean. He's alive now when he should be dead. These facts suggest that impossible outcomes sometimes occur, that low probability events happen, that survival is possible even when logic says otherwise. He falls asleep thinking about the survivor he saw from the air, the man on the other island waving white cloth. That man is still there, probably still waiting for rescue, still hoping someone will come. Collins promised himself he'd report that position, would ensure rescue forces found that survivor. He hasn't fulfilled that promise yet. Can't fulfill it while marooned himself. But the promise remains, obligation unfulfilled, motivation for survival beyond mere self-preservation. He'll survive. He'll get rescued. He'll report the survivor's location. He'll complete his mission. However long it takes, however unlikely it seems, he'll make it happen. Because the alternative, accepting defeat, surrendering to probability, dying forgotten on this island, that's unacceptable. Lieutenant Jack Collins closes his eyes on his seventh night marooned, his body slowly recovering, his mind adapting to new reality, his spirit refusing to break despite every rational reason for despair. The ocean returned him. The island sustains him. Now he just has to survive long enough for the tide to carry him home again. The pilot who returned with the tide. Act 3. Day 14. 2 weeks since the ditching. Collins wakes to the sound of rain drumming on his improved shelter, water streaming through gaps in the palm frond roof, pooling on the ground beneath him. He's learned to sleep through rain, to accept wetness as normal condition rather than emergency. The island has changed him, adapted him, transformed Navy pilot into something else, something primitive and functional and barely recognizable as the person he was before. He's established routine now, structure that keeps him sane and purposeful. Morning begins with water, drinking from the stream, washing his face and infected wound. The infection hasn't improved but hasn't worsened either, stabilized at chronic low-level contamination that his immune system barely manages to contain. Then comes food, checking his fish traps in the reef pools, gathering fruit from the trees he's identified as safe, occasionally finding bird eggs in the jungle. He's not thriving, still losing weight slowly, but he's maintaining basic function, keeping his body operational. Midday is exploration and improvement. He's mapped the entire island mentally, knows every beach, every trail, every resource location. He's built multiple signal markers visible from different angles, maximized his chances of being spotted if aircraft or ships pass nearby. He's created tools from rocks and wood, crude implements but effective for his purposes. He's learned which plants are edible, which fish are safe, which areas of reef are productive. He's become competent survivor, skilled at extracting life from hostile environment. Afternoon is maintenance and preparation. Repairing shelter, gathering firewood for the fire he still can't light, checking his signal markers, scanning the horizon for ships or aircraft that never appear. Evening is the hardest time, when activity ends and thought begins, when isolation presses down like physical weight, when the reality of abandonment becomes undeniable. He counts days by carving marks into his calendar tree, 14 lines now, 2 weeks of survival, 2 weeks of waiting. But today is different. Today brings sound that doesn't belong to the island, mechanical sound foreign to natural environment. Engine noise. Aircraft engine, distant but unmistakable, the drone of piston-driven propeller cutting through jungle sounds. Collins freezes, listening intently, trying to locate the source. There to the north, growing louder, approaching. He runs to the beach, stumbling through vegetation, driven by desperate urgency. This could be it, could be rescue, could be the random chance he's been waiting for. He reaches the beach, scans the sky frantically, sees nothing initially. Then there, breaking through clouds, a dark shape, an aircraft flying perhaps 2 miles offshore, parallel to the island, not directly overhead but close, maybe close enough. It's a PBY Catalina, twin-engine seaplane, workhorse of Pacific Maritime Patrol. Not looking for him specifically, almost certainly just routine patrol or transport mission. But it's human contact, it's potential rescue, it's opportunity that might not come again for weeks or months. He has to signal, has to attract attention, has to make them see him. He runs to his signal fire, the structure he's maintained for 2 weeks despite never successfully lighting it. He grabs his signaling mirror from his emergency supplies, aims it toward the aircraft, tries to reflect sunlight in their direction. But the sky is overcast, the sun barely visible through clouds, the reflection weak and intermittent. The mirror isn't working. He needs something else, something more visible. The aircraft continues parallel to the island, not turning, not deviating from its course. They haven't seen him. They're going to pass by, continue their mission, leave him behind. Panic rises, desperation overwhelming rational thought. He runs along the beach, waving his arms, shouting uselessly, knowing they can't possibly see or hear him from 2 miles away but unable to stop trying. Then he remembers the flares. His emergency supplies include 3 flares, waterproof, sealed in his vest pouch, and used because he's been saving them for moment exactly like this. He fumbles with the pouch, his hands shaking, pulls out a flare, reads the instructions printed on the side. Point away from face, pull tab sharply, hold at arm's length. Simple instructions, critical execution. He aims the flare skyward toward the receding aircraft, pulls the tab. The flare ignites with violent hiss, bright red star shooting upward, arcing through gray sky, burning intensely visible against clouds. It's beautiful and desperate, signal screaming his presence, begging for attention, demanding to be seen. The aircraft continues for long seconds, no change in course, no indication they noticed. Collins watches in agony, the flare burning out, falling toward the ocean, his hope dying with it. They didn't see. They missed it. His chance is passing, flying away, leaving him behind. But then the Catalina banks, turning sharply, changing course toward the island. They saw it. They saw the flare. They're coming to investigate. Collins falls to his knees in the sand, overwhelming relief flooding through him, tears streaming down his face. After 14 days of isolation, 14 days of abandonment, 14 days of survival against odds, someone finally sees him. Someone is coming. The Catalina circles the island at low altitude, the crew obviously searching for the source of the flare. Collins waves frantically, jumps, shouts, makes himself as visible as possible. The aircraft circles twice, then a crewman appears in the waste blister window, waving back, acknowledgement clear. They see him. They know he's here. They're confirming his position. The Catalina can't land here, the water too shallow, the reef too dangerous for seaplane operations. But they circle once more, then drop a package, small bundle tumbling from the cargo door, splashing into the water 50 yards offshore. Collins runs into the ocean, swims desperately toward the package, his weakened body protesting but adrenaline providing strength. He reaches it, grabs it, hauls it back to shore. The package is waterproof container, military standard supply drop. Inside he finds food, real food, canned rations and chocolate bars and coffee. Also fresh water, 2 canteens, clean and safe. Medical supplies, bandages and antiseptic and antibiotics for his infected wound. A radio, small emergency transmitter, already preset to rescue frequency. And a message, handwritten note from the Catalina's crew. Hang tight. Reported your position. Rescue en route. Estimate 12 to 18 hours. You're going home. Collins reads the note 3 times, unable to process it fully, unable to believe that his ordeal is ending, that rescue is actually coming, that he's survived long enough to be found. 14 days of waiting, 14 days of isolation, 14 days of believing he might die on this island, and now suddenly it's over. Rescue is coming. He's going home. He activates the radio transmitter, following instructions printed on the case. The device powers on, indicator light showing active transmission. It's a beacon, broadcasting his position continuously, guiding rescue forces directly to him. He doesn't need to do anything else, just wait, keep the transmitter active, let the signal draw help to him like lighthouse guiding ships through darkness. The next 18 hours are simultaneously the longest and shortest of his life. Long because waiting is torture when salvation is promised but not yet delivered. Short because he's suddenly aware of everything he's endured, every day of survival, every close call with death, all of it compressed into rapid psychological review. He's going home. He survived. Against impossible odds, against every probability, he's actually going to make it. He eats real food for the first time in 2 weeks, canned beef and crackers, chocolate bar that tastes better than anything he's ever consumed. He drinks clean water, not stream water or rainwater but purified canteen water, safe and perfect. He treats his infected wound with antiseptic and antibiotics, proper medical care that immediately begins reducing inflammation. These small comforts taken for granted before the ditching, now feel like luxuries beyond description. Night falls, his 14th night on the island, but different from all previous nights because now he knows it's his last. Tomorrow he'll be rescued, extracted, returned to civilization. He lies in his shelter one final time, listening to familiar jungle sounds, feeling rain on his face, saying silent goodbye to the island that sustained him, that kept him alive when he should have died. He hates this place and is grateful to it simultaneously, complicated relationship between prisoner and prison that saved his life through captivity. Dawn arrives gray and overcast, typical Pacific weather. Collins wakes early, too excited to sleep, anticipation overwhelming exhaustion. He returns to the beach, maintains watch on the horizon, scanning for rescue vessel. The radio transmitter continues broadcasting, steady pulse of electronic signal marking his position for anyone listening. Mid-morning brings the sound he's been waiting for. Engine noise again but different from the Catalina, heavier, closer to water. He scans the horizon, sees shape emerging from morning haze. Small vessel, probably destroyer or destroyer escort, approaching the island at speed. Navy ship. American ship. His ship coming to bring him home. The vessel approaches cautiously, navigating around the reef, searching for safe anchorage. It's a destroyer escort, small but capable, bristling with weapons designed for anti-submarine warfare. The ship stops perhaps 200 yards offshore, unable to approach closer due to shallow water and coral. A motor launch detaches from the ship, small boat with crew of 4 heading toward the beach. Collins wades into the water to meet them, unable to wait, unwilling to let additional seconds separate him from rescue. The launch reaches shallow water, a sailor jumps out, approaches Collins with expression mixing relief and shock. Collins knows he looks terrible, emaciated and sunburned and filthy, barely recognizable as Navy officer. But he's alive. That's what matters. Everything else can be fixed. The sailor helps Collins aboard the launch, treating him with gentle care appropriate for trauma survivor. Collins wants to talk, to explain everything, to tell his story, but words won't come. He's overwhelmed, emotionally exhausted, barely able to process that rescue is actually happening. The launch returns to the destroyer escort, Collins watching the island recede, the place that nearly killed him and ultimately saved him disappearing behind morning haze. Aboard ship, he's taken immediately to sick bay, examined by the ship's doctor, treated for dehydration, malnutrition, infection, exposure. The doctor is professional but clearly concerned, cataloging injuries and damage, making notes for hospital treatment when they reach port. Collins has lost 30 pounds, his body weight dangerously low. His infection is serious, requiring aggressive antibiotic treatment. He has sun damage, dehydration effects, minor injuries from the ditching. But he's alive. Damaged but functional. Survivable injuries, recoverable conditions. The captain visits sick bay that afternoon, wanting to hear Collins' story firsthand. Collins tells everything: the ditching, the 3 days floating, the current carrying him to the island, the 2 weeks of survival. The captain listens with growing amazement, occasionally asking questions, clearly impressed by Collins' resilience and resourcefulness. When Collins finishes, the captain is silent for a long moment, then speaks quietly. "You're the luckiest man I've ever met, Lieutenant. 3 days in the water without raft, that should have killed you. The current bringing you to land, that's 1 in a million. Surviving 2 weeks alone, that takes skill and determination. But all of it together? That's beyond luck. That's miraculous." Collins nods weakly, too tired to argue, too grateful to analyze. Maybe it was miracle. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was simple refusal to die combined with random chance aligning in his favor. The explanation doesn't matter. The result does. He's alive. He survived. He's going home. But then he remembers the other survivor. The man on the different island, the one he saw from his aircraft before ditching, waving white cloth, desperately signaling. Collins gave coordinates for that island to Enterprise, but he never confirmed if rescue was dispatched, never knew if that man was saved. The promise he made to himself to report that survivor's location to ensure rescue, it's been unfulfilled for 2 weeks. He tells the captain about the other survivor, describes the island's location as precisely as memory allows, explains that he saw definite signs of human presence, someone signaling for help. The captain listens carefully, makes notes, radios the information to higher command. Within hours, search aircraft are dispatched to the coordinates Collins provided, looking for the island and its occupant. 2 days later, while Collins is still aboard the destroyer escort heading toward Major Port, the captain receives message. Search aircraft found the island. Found the survivor. Japanese soldier, holdout who refused to surrender after war's end, living alone for months, waiting for rescue that he believed would come from his own forces. The white cloth Collins saw wasn't distress signal, it was homemade Japanese flag. The man wasn't calling for rescue, he was maintaining his post, refusing to abandon duty even though the war ended. The irony is crushing. Collins nearly died trying to report that survivor's position, felt obligation to ensure rescue, carried the promise through 14 days of isolation. And the survivor didn't want rescue from Americans, wouldn't have accepted it, would have hidden or fought rather than surrender. Collins' promise was based on misunderstanding, his obligation was unnecessary, his guilt was unwarranted. But the captain offers different perspective. The Japanese soldier was extracted anyway once located, whether he wanted rescue or not. He was brought to safety, fed, treated medically, repatriated eventually to Japan. He survived because Collins reported his position, because search forces investigated, because someone cared enough to check. The soldier's intentions don't matter. The result does. A life was saved. The promise was fulfilled, even if not in the way Collins imagined. Collins processes this slowly, his exhausted mind struggling with complexity. He wanted to save someone, wanted his suffering to mean something beyond personal survival. And maybe it did. Maybe his ditching, his floating, his observation of the other island, maybe all of it served purpose larger than himself. The chain of causation is indirect and accidental, but the outcome is real. Someone lived who might have died. That counts for something. The destroyer escort reaches port 5 days after Collins' rescue. He's transferred immediately to Naval Hospital, beginning extended recovery and rehabilitation. The doctors are optimistic but cautious. His physical injuries will heal with time and treatment. His psychological state is harder to evaluate. He's experienced severe trauma, prolonged isolation, repeated near-death experiences. Some men break from less. But Collins seems resilient, functional, processing his experience with remarkable clarity. He spends 6 weeks in hospital, regaining weight, healing infection, recovering strength. Navy investigators debrief him extensively, documenting his survival for training purposes, extracting lessons that might help other downed pilots. His story enters official record, becomes case study in survival against odds, example of human resilience and determination. He receives the Distinguished Flying Cross for his patrol missions before the ditching, routine award for combat service. But also receives Navy and Marine Corps Medal for his survival, recognition that staying alive against impossible odds demonstrates courage as surely as combat does. The medals feel hollow somehow, medal and ribbon commemorating suffering that needs no commemoration. But he accepts them gracefully, understanding they represent institutional acknowledgement, Navy's way of saying his ordeal mattered. His family arrives from Iowa, his mother and father traveling to California to see him, to confirm he's alive, to process the miracle of his survival. They received telegram 2 weeks after his ditching, standard casualty notification, missing in action, presumed dead. They grieved, accepted his loss, began adjusting to world without their son. Then second telegram arrived, miraculous reversal. Found alive, recovering, will contact soon. The emotional whiplash nearly destroyed them. Collins sees the damage his survival caused, the psychological toll on his parents of losing him and finding him again. Part of him wishes they'd never received the first telegram, wishes the Navy had simply waited until his status was confirmed. But military procedures don't work that way. Families must be notified promptly of casualties, even presumed ones. The pain was unavoidable, inherent to war's mathematics. He's discharged from hospital in December 1945, 4 months after the ditching. The war is definitively over now, Japan occupied, demobilization proceeding rapidly, military shrinking back toward peacetime size. Collins is offered choice: remain in Navy, accept regular commission, continue flying. Or accept discharge, return to civilian life, leave military service behind. He chooses discharge. The war took everything he had to give and more. He can't imagine climbing back into aircraft cockpit, can't imagine flying over water again, can't imagine facing dangers he's already survived once through sheer luck. He's done. His war is over. Time to go home. January 1946. Collins returns to Iowa, to Des Moines, to the house where he grew up, to life he left behind when he enlisted in 1943. Everything is familiar but nothing feels the same. The town hasn't changed, but he has, transformed by experiences that can't be explained to people who weren't there. He's polite and functional and present, but some essential part of him remains on that island, alone in the jungle, counting days on a tree trunk, waiting for rescue that might never come. He struggles with civilian transition. Employment feels meaningless compared to flying combat missions. Social interactions feel trivial compared to surviving alone for 2 weeks. He has nightmares regularly, dreams about floating in the Pacific, about drowning, about dying of thirst surrounded by water. He wakes gasping, disoriented, taking minutes to remember he's safe, he's home, the war is over. His mother suggests he talk to other veterans, join support groups forming around the country for men struggling with readjustment. Collins resists initially, believing his problems are unique, his experiences too specific. But eventually he attends a meeting, listens to other veterans describe their struggles, their nightmares, their inability to connect with civilian life. And he realizes he's not alone, not unique, not the only one carrying invisible wounds. He meets Sarah at a veterans social event, church-organized gathering meant to reintegrate veterans into community. She's a nurse, worked at Naval Hospital in San Diego during the war, treated hundreds of wounded men, saw suffering that changed her understanding of human capacity for endurance. They connect immediately, two people marked by war in different ways, recognizing in each other the shared experience of seeing too much, knowing too much, carrying weight that others can't comprehend. They marry in 1947, build life together, create normalcy through daily routine and mutual support. Collins gets job at small airport, teaching civilian pilots, staying connected to aviation without returning to military flying. It's good work, meaningful, using skills he developed at terrible cost. His students don't know his history, don't know he survived 3 days floating in the Pacific, don't know he was marooned for 2 weeks. He doesn't tell them. The past is private, contained, separated from present life. But he thinks about the island frequently, particularly at night when sleep won't come. He wonders if his shelter still stands, if his signal markers remain visible, if the calendar tree still shows 14 carved lines. He wonders if other pilots ditched nearby, if anyone else was carried by current to that particular island, if his survival trail might help someone else someday. Probably not. The Pacific is vast, the island is remote, the probability of repetition is minimal. But the thought comforts him somehow, the idea that his suffering created knowledge that might prevent someone else's death. Years pass. Decades. Collins builds career, raises family, lives quiet, productive life. The war recedes into history, from recent memory to distant past to historical events studied by people who weren't born when it happened. Collins ages, his body slowing, his memories fading slightly, details blurring into general impressions. But some things remain sharp, immediate, permanent. The taste of salt water. The sound of waves. The feeling of sand beneath him when he crawled onto the beach. The overwhelming relief when he saw the Catalina turn toward his flare. Collins is 74 years old, 50 years removed from his ordeal. The Navy contacts him, requests interview for historical documentary about Pacific War survival stories. They want to film him, record his testimony, preserve his story for future generations. He agrees reluctantly, uncomfortable with attention but understanding the value of documentation. The interview takes place in Des Moines, camera crew from Naval History Center, professional historian conducting questions. Collins tells his story methodically, describing the ditching, the floating, the current, the island, the rescue. He's told this story many times over the decades to family, to Sarah, to fellow veterans. But never for camera, never for permanent record, never with understanding that his words might be studied by historians and survival trainers and people trying to understand what humans can endure. The historian asks final question. Looking back after 50 years, what do you think about when you remember that experience? Collins considers carefully before answering. I think about the ocean. How it should have killed me but didn't. How the current carried me for 3 days, 72 hours, and delivered me to land. People talk about luck, about probability, about survival skills. But none of that explains what happened. The ocean gave me back. I don't know why. I don't know if there's reason or if it's just random chance that happened to align in my favor. But I think about it. I think about it every day. Do you have regrets? The historian asks. Not about surviving, Collins says immediately. But about the time I lost, the person I was before who died out there even though my body survived. I came back different. Everyone who knew me before the war, they saw the difference even if they didn't understand it. The ocean returned my body. But it kept part of my soul. That stayed behind, floating in the Pacific, waiting on that island. I've lived a good life since then, 50 years, family and work and meaning. But I'm not whole. I haven't been whole since the tide brought me back. The interview ends. The documentary is completed months later, airs on military television, reaches small specialized audience. Collins watches it alone, Sarah having passed 2 years earlier. He sees himself on screen, old man telling story of young man's survival, and barely recognizes either person. The young pilot who ditched in 1945 is stranger to him now, impossibly distant, separated by 50 years and experiences that transformed him completely. The old man on screen is stranger too, voice and face familiar but person inside unknowable. Collins dies in 1998, 77 years old, 53 years beyond the day he should have died in the Pacific. His obituary in the Des Moines Register mentions his military service, his survival story, his decades teaching aviation. It doesn't mention the nightmares that never fully stopped, the hypervigilance that made him scan horizons automatically for 50 years, the way he never felt completely safe even in his own home. Those details died with him, private cost of survival that he carried alone. His children scatter his ashes over the Pacific, per his request, final return to the water that gave him back once before. The ashes dissolve into the ocean, becoming part of the vast system that carried him, that sustained him, that defined the rest of his life. The Pacific keeps everything eventually, takes what it's owed, Claims debts deferred but never forgiven. Collins understood this. He survived on borrowed time, 53 years extended beyond their natural end, gift from an ocean that gives back rarely and never completely. The tide brought him back in 1945, delivered him to land when he should have drowned, carried him home when probability said he'd never be found. But the ocean never truly released him. Part of Jack Collins remained in the Pacific always, floating between waves, waiting on empty island, counting days that never end. That part stayed behind when his body came home. The ocean gave him back. But not all of him. Never all of him. The sea shall not have them, the motto promised. But sometimes the sea has them anyway, just not in ways that show on casualty lists. Sometimes survival is its own kind of loss, rescue is its own kind of death. Jack Collins came home from the Pacific. But part of him never left. The tide brought him back. The ocean kept him anyway. Both things are true. Both will always be true.